What's up, everyone? Thorgon here, and it's finally here. It's finally happened. The big promise patch #1 for Dark and Darker, where they've promised that they've adjusted almost every class and item in the game. Now, when going through these patch notes here quick, you're going to notice that they didn't actually change the classes individually a lot. It's more that they've adjusted everything around these classes, and hopefully it'll bring them more in line with what they're supposed to be and more balanced. Looking at you, Ranger. Now, to start off, there are just a bunch of bug fixes for, random junk that you may have encountered, such as, your character T-posing, or when you get revived or are spectating, you're viewing the back of someone's face from the inside, and it's partially terrifying, partially hilarious. Besides these fixes, there are the actual updates, such as some little things like new emotes being added, a new feature to receive server maintenance notices, protection against security vulnerabilities, and all that cool stuff. That's not the stuff we're here to find out. What we're here to find out is what they've done to the classes and the items and the maps and everything else. And they just get right into it here with something that's incredibly interesting. They've added 2 new attributes, manual dexterity and persuasion. Now, I'm imagining that manual dexterity is interaction speed being broken off from agility so that rogues and rangers don't have everything just handed to them in terms of running through doors and stuff like that. And it'll give maybe other classes a chance to be on par with them. And persuasion, I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what persuasion is. Maybe it's something that affects your dealings with the merchants, which would be strange because you'd be able to just change your items in your inventory and then go shop and then come back. So persuasion having something to do in the dungeon would be definitely interesting. Maybe it has more of an effect on your spells, or I don't know. I have no idea what that could be. And now, here are the big Warlock changes. Honestly, before we even get to the rest of them, the nicest thing I'm seeing here is that Warlock's Curse of Pain is now more generous with its hitbox. Previously, you could thread that thing between the ribs on a skeleton and it wouldn't hit them. Now, hopefully, it'll be a little closer to Zap in that it hits a larger area, and you're much more likely to hit someone that you're actually on top of. We've got 2 new perks, Curse Mastery and Vampirism. I imagine Curse Mastery does something along the lines of when you use Curse of Pain or something like that, it lasts longer on the person you cast it on, or it does more damage. But I feel like lasting longer would be really, really nice with the 1 perk they have that lets you heal from magic damage when they have their curse on them. And Vampirism, which honestly, I don't know if that's a replacement or like a merging of the old perk that healed you with another one, or just an improvement on it. But if it's a new thing entirely, this could be related to just healing directly from magic damage and taking that off of Curse of Pain to that's probably what it is actually. Previously, Curse of Pain would heal you when it was on an enemy, and while it was on them, other magic damage you did to them would also heal you, even though that's not what the perk said. It's possible that Vampirism is that other part of it taken out, where you do healing from magic damage on targets that are cursed, or it could just be related to physical damage or something along those lines. But either way, it's going to be something that helps mitigate the health costs that Warlocks have, and that sometimes can get them into spicy situations. Now they've gotten 8 new spells. Bolt of Darkness, Evil Eye, Bloodstained Blade, Flame Walker, Life Drain, Ray of Darkness, Eldritch Shield, and most importantly, Summon Hydra. Now, some of these, actually all of these, are pretty hard to figure out exactly what it's going to do. Like Bolt of Darkness is probably pretty basic. I'd imagine something like the Wizard's Ice Bolt, and possibly it reduces the range that you can see around you, makes everything seem darker. Or Evil Eye could be something similar to that, where you summon something in a location or that floats out slowly, and that enemies who see it or are seen by it have their vision range reduced. Bloodstained Blade, I imagine is something similar to the Wizard's Ignite or the Cleric's attack buff. I can't remember the name at the time, but it's possible that this either causes the enemy to bleed a little bit over time, or I'm thinking more likely it will heal when you're swinging at them and hit an enemy with your weapon to get a little bit of lifesteal back, which makes this really interesting if the Warlock is able to basically pseudo heal their fighter or rogue using this buff. Flamewalker, if I had to take a wild guess at this, I'd assume you cast it and you leave like a little trail of fire in your wake, like, you know, if you threw an oil lantern or one of the Molotovs. This could perhaps dissuade enemies from chasing you or something along those lines, just to make it easier to run away so you're not just getting murdered as you try to escape. Life Drain, interesting. Life Drain might be some sort of channeled thing. Looking at Ray of Darkness, it's possible that, you know, Ray of Darkness is like a main channeled spell and where you're more likely to see that come into play, and then Life Drain is another channeled spell. I think it'd definitely be interesting to have not just a projectile fly out, but something that you sit there and channel. It would be especially interesting for a Warlock because their spells cost health. Like if it was on a wizard or something, a channeled spell, holding it might drain like charges of the spell. Like maybe you start with 100 and every second you channel it, it's like losing 3 to 5 stacks a second, and resting heals those up pretty fast. For something like Ray of Darkness or Life Drain, it's possible that channeling them longer does more damage to you, but it also keeps them out longer. So you can really stop a team from pushing through a door by just shooting your Ray of Darkness at it, at the cost of you getting weaker and losing your health. Eldritch Shield, I imagine, is something along the lines of the Cleric Shield, or possibly the Wizard Shield active ability, where you'll prep this before you go into combat on either you or one of your teammates, and when it breaks, it maybe does a small AoE damage, possibly like dark damage or stuff like that, to interact with some of the perks we have for Warlock. And lastly, Summon Hydra. Now, honestly, I feel like this is either going to be one of the most busted or most useless spells in the entire game, or just the most annoying, because if it summons something that can move around, odds are it's going to be around the same size as a normal mob, or it's going to take a chunk of your HP to summon something that's pretty big and powerful. It'd be cool to cast like 90% of your HP, and this summon has the same HP as all the health you spent to summon it, if it was something percentage based like that. Or, you know, its damage scales with your magic damage, or maybe it scales with your strength. There's a lot of interesting things they can do with it. But my guess is, since it's a Hydra, and those are typically pretty large, I think they're going to go more the route that Diablo does with their Hydra summons, in that it's less of a walking, swinging, lumbering, you know, monster mob that can walk around on its own, but it's more of just a head that pops out of the ground. I'm imagining what this Hydra does is pop its head out of the ground, probably one, and melee attack at nearby enemies for like zone control around the Warlock, or something you can cast on the ground after you've already gotten your heals off, and you can just keep running around while it picks away at enemies. Honestly, there could be a lot of things that they do with this Summon Hydra, and all of them would be super interesting in their own ways. But yeah, I personally think it'll be a head that pops out of the ground and just kind of damages enemies for a little bit. Maybe it has a health, or maybe when enemies kill it, 2 little heads will pop up from it for a period of time, so that, you know, maybe it dies for a second after they kill it, and your enemies have time to get relieved from that pressure, but then it comes back with more heads. That would also be interesting, but possibly insanely broken. So I don't know if that's necessarily it. I think they're going more around going to go more the route that a Hydra is a serpent type creature and not necessarily regrowing a million heads. Now, one that people have been asking for, moving on to the Rogue, is that with the Pickpocket perk equipped, Rogue will no longer be broken out of stealth if they're bumped, which means you can get right up on those people's asses and just start picking around in there and taking stuff from their little prison pocket, and they won't bump into you and accidentally reveal you. Aside from that, there are minor changes to Rogue. Reduction in their cooldown for hide by 5 seconds. It's not big, but it's something. Rogue's cutthroat cooldown is reduced by a ton. It's cut over half of the cooldown out of it, that's a huge buff. Hopefully that will be big and be able to be used more in combination with the hide cooldown, since they're a lot closer in their cooldown now. As for Ranger, it's gotten a couple changes. None of the big changes we've probably been hoping for, but some pretty good ones. First off, their quick shot now fires a different amount of arrows based on the bow type. And what I immediately think of here is that they reduced the longbow to 2, or if they've balanced it to do a lot less damage, it'll stay at 3, and then they'll maybe go to like 4 and 5. Or my guess would be 2 for the longbow, 4 for the recurve, and then 6 for the survival bow, so that they can make use of their less damage but faster attack speeds, so that they all kind of come out to the same damage when you use quick shot. I think that'd be really interesting. And as part of their all items being rebalanced changes, I imagine they possibly changed how many arrows each of the bows can have loaded at a time. So maybe a survival bow can actually get more arrows and take advantage of their attack speed more. Now, their quick shot cooldown has been increased by almost 50%, up to 28 seconds. So now they won't just be shooting their triple shot at you, running away a little bit after they slowed you, and then just churning around and shooting you again. No more of that. You'll actually have some time to push into them once they've used it. They'll be vulnerable for a bit. Their multi-shot, which is the little shotgun blast, has had its cooldown reduced. So, if you want to bring two attacks, a lot of Rangers bring the Eat as their second spell. If you want to bring 2 attacks, then you can basically switch these 2 off because they're the same cooldown now. You can do your quick shot, and then once they start to come in on you, you multi-shot, and then after that, your quick shot's back up again, and you can alternate between the 2 to punish them for trying to run up on you. But now, the last skill that's received a change is their penetrating shot, with the cooldown getting reduced by only 4 seconds, but it's something, because penetrating shot is actually pretty good. It ignores a lot of armor that someone might have, but it's just hard to justify over something like quick shot or eating. And with some of the changes they made below that they mention, that they're making armor lowering the curve so that the higher end isn't as drastic damage reduction, penetrating shot might just not be as useful anymore. Another change here is that hunting trap only deals 1 damage per second at all rarities. So I'm not sure what different rarities are going to end up doing. Maybe they do a little bit of damage longer. Maybe they take longer to undo or set faster. It'd be interesting to see what the only changes are for rarities, or if they're even going to be worth trying to sell on the utility trade. Wizard has only received 1 change, and it's that fireball damage has been reduced by a little bit. 5 on the main blast and 5 on the AoE, which is, painful, but also not so bad because fireball hits like a truck. Losing a little bit of this base damage isn't going to be a big deal, I don't think, especially with some of the changes they make down below, where they say they've added stats besides armor to almost every item to give them value outside of just being damage reduction. Here it says all weapon damage has been rebalanced. And that kind of goes back to what I said about the Rangers quick shot and their bows. They possibly made it just go like 3, 4, 5 with the quick shot and reduced the damage of the longbow, increased survival bow, and tried to all bring them more in line to do the same amount of damage with their quick shot. Aside from that, a lot of the weaker items might start to see use here. For example, the wizard might have a reason to use staff more. Maybe it'll do good melee damage for once, and maybe the spell damage isn't as nice, but you can actually use it to thwomp someone in melee range to protect yourself. Maybe something like the windlass crossbow will actually be worth its large cooldown. If you can get a headshot, you can just take someone down immediately. I mean, that doesn't sound fun to play against, but it sounds fun to use. I just mentioned this, but most armors have been updated and give additional bonuses in addition to just armor rating. In all honesty, I think this is gonna be the biggest buff for Wizard, because they have things like their wizard hat, their wizard shoes, the frock, and all that stuff that just doesn't give any bonuses. And now if those give some sort of knowledge or will type bonuses, Wizard's going to be in a pretty good spot in terms of base stats. Having more knowledge will make them cast faster at a base, so the magic staff doesn't feel as bad. I don't know. There's just a lot of interesting possibilities they could do here. I know there are a couple other items that don't have bonuses, like the default rogue hood and chest piece don't have any bonuses. So it'll be interesting to see if they give anything to the base items. Armor rating curve slightly reduced at the upper end due to the higher overall armor values. So it sounds like they not just reduced the curve at the top so that you can't get as much damage reduction, which is nice because some fighters with high damage reduction were just unkillable if you didn't have a wizard or something on your team. And it sounds like they also increased armor for everything, so that taking off all of your stuff and running around like a naked nerd actually has some, consequences. Maybe you'll actually be tankier wearing your clothes, and your wizard will die in one axe swing instead of one axe swing. The value range of most random modifiers has been rebalanced, which means, all attributes might be at just one, and specific stats might be higher. Maybe you can get, 3 strength, 4 strength or something, or maybe percentages are bigger, so you can get maybe like a 10% damage bonus, physical damage bonus, because previously on something, like the barbarian, that's a lot of damage, but is it as good as true damage? Don't know. But if it's a percentage, then people that do bigger swings or bigger hits might actually want to use those. Or maybe they increased armor penetration percentage values on some of these items to make them more useful. I don't know. This is just an exciting idea that they've looked at all of the affixes that can appear on items and have taken the time to adjust them to make them more fair or more usable. Now, the only weapon they mentioned specifically in these patch notes, is the battle axe, and they've given it slightly longer range. And as a non-barbarian main, I hate that. That's just it. I mean, I'm sure barbarians are going to love it, but I hate it. Torches and lanterns now give a slight movement speed buff instead of a penalty. Now that's really interesting. I think we're going to be seeing more people not just go, bare-fisted to run away from enemies. They're going to be pulling out their torch or pulling out their lantern to go faster. And while that's going to be nice to get a move speed boost, it also means it's going to be hard for you to get away and hide because you're carrying a torch. So that's kind of the trade-off. You get to move faster, but it's kind of hard to lose someone that's chasing you when you're a giant ball of bright light in a dark dungeon. Rarity-specific skins have been added for the drum and lyre. Now, those seem like two weird items to give skins to, but it's probably like a test for getting skins out on all items that have different rarities and seeing just how noticeable it really is. Here's another big one people have been asking for: bigger coin bags. They've added a coin bag that can hold up to 500 gold coins now, but it must be crafted at the leathersmith. So we might finally be seeing a use for all of these different materials we're seeing dropped from monsters. And if you're really feeling like a big boy, there's a coin chest that can hold up to 3,000 coins, but you have to find it in treasure hoards. Now, I imagine that's going to be a highly sought after item, especially for these chads whose inventories are full of just good items, but they can't have any space for gear. Now, the coin chest probably takes up 4 to 6 slots, so it's not going to be small by any means, but it's definitely going to help free up a ton of space for people. It also means you probably won't have to be just keep buying bags as you get too much gold and then dropping them all in the dungeon because you got 50 empty bags in your inventory. It'll be nice for that kind of thing too. They've added 4 new unique items: Echo of Screams, Soul Reaper, Death Bloom, and Stinky Stick. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say the Stinky Stick is a quarterstaff, and that sounds amazing. I don't care what it does. Stinky Stick, hit me up in trade chat, 10 keys. Give me the Stinky Stick, and I'm just going to run some kids down. I'll switch to being a Barbarian main if that's the case. Soul Reaper sounds a lot like it's going to be an item for Warlocks. Death Bloom, that could be for anyone. But I don't know what kind of items don't have. Fucking hair went in my mouth. Sorry about that. Don't know what kind of items don't have uniques. Like maybe Echo of Screams is finally going to be a spell book. Or maybe that's Soul Reaper or Death Bloom. Just, I don't know. Look at the different items that don't have unique yet and see what they could possibly be based on their names. Soul Reaper could be, you know, a falchion, or it could be a crystal orb. Now, a couple more small changes or fixes, like cloak cloth simulation being optimized. Item skins are now displayed properly on the paper doll. Another notable thing is that lockpick drop rate has been increased. This is nice because nobody wants to take lockpick and nobody's finding or buying lockpicks, and you bring them because you get like one chance. Now that hopefully we'll find more of them, it'll be more enticing to use them and bring them. Names of level modules are displayed on the minimap. I'm going to be honest, I don't really know what that means. Maybe they've given rooms names and it'll show, or maybe there's specific names for the maps that'll tell you on the minimap so that you can, you know, oh, I know this is map 1B, so that I know this layout. That type of stuff. High roller crypt maps increased from 4x4 to 5x5 size, which means you'll have more time to farm and not just get run down by other teams. And what I think is strange is that the normal and high roller crypt maps now share the same map pool. So I might be dumb, but I don't remember the size of high roller crypt maps before this. Maybe they were smaller than the normal crypt maps. This brings them in line with each other, and now when you're doing the high roller crypt, there'll be more variety. Because I know there are some cool maps that can only be found in high roller, and a lot of players don't get to, you know, experience them, like the room with the giant arena in the middle and circular ledge around it type of stuff. Added an extra dark swarm phase, so players don't need to traverse as much distance at once. That's pretty nice because it feels like sometimes if you get the short end of the stick on a spawn, you have to clear straight towards the circle, possibly just try to get through another team, or you're going to be in a really disadvantageous position trying to keep up with the circle and everyone else who's already in it. Updated environments for approximately 40 level modules. This could mean they made them look better, or this could mean they changed their layout, like stairs, objects, things like that. Level object density for ruins and crypts has been increased. I don't know what that means. I'm gonna be real. I don't know what that means. Level object density for ruins and crypts has been increased. If you have any idea what that is, leave a comment down below and let me know. Let's see. Portal added to the outskirts of ruins. So it sounds like there might be a option to always escape from ruins, similar to the Goblin Caves on the edge of the map. There'll be a place you can always run to towards the end to get out. That would be pretty nice, and it would, you know, incentivize learning the ruins map better. I feel like a lot of people kind of just go in there and run around and hope it works out. They've re-added the rusty iron door key. New royal coffins have been added to dungeons, which I imagine are just bigger, spicier coffins that might need a lockpick even. Gold chests have been renamed to marvelous chests. That sounds kind of sick. Additional attack patterns added to the nightmare version of the monsters in the Goblin Cave, which is really cool because they've added different layouts for the normal Goblin Caves. So when you encounter the nightmare versions in those different things, in the different levels, like in the normal one, if you encounter a nightmare, it'll spice up your run a bit. Or if you go to high roller, maybe you'll know the maps better because maybe they added those layouts to normal goblin caves, and it'll be easier for you to learn these new nightmare attack patterns since you know the map well enough. Skeleton champion animations have been updated. Royal Guard animations have been updated. Ruins Golem sub-boss has been added. That sounds really exciting. There's finally something to go for in the ruins, like the troll in the goblin caves, or the lich, ghost king, and skeleton warlord. Now there's something to actually go farm and get spicy loot on the ruins map, and maybe that'll draw a lot more players there. And I mean, you already see a lot of fights on the map, but now you're probably going to see even more. I feel like 2v2 is the perfect team size to be fighting at the boss, because you have one person trying to clear it and your buddy trying to hold off the team that's trying to run you down and take your loot. I definitely think that's going to add a lot of interesting interactions in the ruins map, and I'm excited to see it. Now, here's some other big changes. Merchants have been updated to sell a much larger amount and variety of items. This is probably going to mean you're more likely to find blue items or green items of your desired class at the different merchants, and you probably won't be waiting around as long to find certain items in particular, like gray spellbooks. If you're just waiting for those to show up, maybe those will always be around now, and maybe you'll be more likely to find like a blue spellbook in the store, and that'd be super nice. They've added a greater luck potion to the fortune teller. I never used the luck potion much, but maybe, I don't know, maybe luck is going to be rebalanced to be a more attractive stat. New craft and mining items added. This is probably going to be those leathersmith items they mentioned earlier to craft those new bags, and it's exciting to see what's going to come out from this. Like maybe you aren't just using dust and ingots to craft everything. Maybe there's now cobalt leather or ruby silver leather that you use to craft those items. And maybe you can now craft all items or all armor items. Because previously there were some, items you couldn't craft. You couldn't craft a shadow mask. Some items were only available in cobalt. Some items were only available in ruby silver. Maybe this adds different levels to them. Now you can make ruby silver Lightfoot boots, and now you can finally make a shadow mask. Or maybe they've even made it so that you can make weapons. I think that would be really interesting, but maybe a little bit busted to be able to just create purple weapons on cue. Equipment slot filter has been added to Trading Post, thank God, because it's sometimes annoying to go through and checkbox all the different chest pieces that you can find equipped, or something like that. Trading Post now displays a timestamp so that you can see if something is old, it's probably not being posted anymore, or the person's probably left. And then here's the spiciest thing on this list. Several other changes not included are in the patch. Now this is probably hiding the most exciting stuff, or it's hiding the least important things, but that's boring. So I'm going to go ahead and try to guess what it might be in the exciting scale of things. Maybe with these new crafting and mining items, maybe they've added quests finally, and we can use these different materials we've always been finding, like the mimic tongue or tooth, to level up or complete quests so that we get more variety of items from the merchants, like they say above. Maybe this is the skill tree finally shaking everything up. In exchange for the minimal changes to classes, they've added the skill tree that should hopefully balance everything out alongside all their item adjustments. Aside from that, who knows? Well, that's it. That's the whole patch. Let me know if there's anything you're particularly excited for, or if you think something might be different than what I've listed. Let's get the discussion going. We've got a while before this patch drops. 4 hours. Let's get speculating. Later.